Hi, my name is Jenny Colborn. I had a mastectomy on the 24th of July this year, and I'm presently receiving chemotherapy. This is being filmed 2 days after my 5th chemotherapy. I've been very well, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've done that have helped me and my modified yoga practice. I've received a lot of Reiki during my journey, both hands-on and from a distance, and I believe it's helped me a lot. Reiki is an ancient, natural healing system. When I go for my treatments, I go with friends. They always give me Reiki and we talk about other things. We've planned Reiki seminars in Crete. We've talked about my friend's trip to Italy. As soon as the treatment is finished, and I've had my nice chat with my wonderful doctor, Michalis Karamousis, I go home. I have a nice Mediterranean siesta for as long as my body needs. The next day, doctor's orders, I go to work. Whether it's hands-on teaching down at my center, Ilium Center in Athens, or writing or organizing. A friend of mine, Petros Poulakis, had said to me, "Jenny, don't focus on the symptoms. Focus on something else. Focus on being creative." And I did, and it helped a lot. I started once again to listen to Louise Hay. I had come across her work in the 1980s, and I'd found it very important. I highly recommend it. I listened to her tapes in the car traveling down to Athens. I started practicing positive thought. It really helped, and I highly recommend it. I listened to and drank in information from people who had passed through chemotherapy, had survived a long time until today. One friend had seen it as a chance to change psychologically. She had felt empowered. I took this as a message, and I reconnected with retired psychologist Myrtle Nielsen, who had worked with families who had been touched by cancer. I saw her as a wise old woman, an elder. I respected deeply her experience, and I listened with gratitude to whatever she had to tell me. I heard about a young woman who had worked in a very busy practice all through her treatments, including on the day that she received her treatments. I took courage from that. I started an alkaline diet. This was approved of by my surgeon, Michalis Philippidis. For good measure, I ate 1 tablespoon of cottage cheese mixed with 1 tablespoon of linseed oil with my breakfast in the morning, as it's supposed to be anti-carcinogenic. I also ate a teaspoon of raw honey morning and evening. The honey came from a hive in Tinos and still had the wax in it. You have to spit out the wax, of course. One of the things that was a little unpleasant was with the treatment, your skin tends to get a little dry and you can smell the medicines on your skin. This was very unpleasant when I wanted to do self-Reiki and put my hands in the first position. I started to use body lotion, something I'd been really lazy about, and I got myself a new good habit. We're very lucky here in Greece because we have some wonderful creams from a company called Kores that have wonderful smells: Japanese rose, jasmine, vanilla plum, bliss. I'm receiving complementary treatments. Fascia treatment from Mariella Spiliopoulou and cranial sacral treatment from my spiritual mother and mentor, Lena Trifonopoulou, has the most wonderful healing hands. I had received a wonderful Bowen treatment from Alice Bell, but I feel that I'm doing enough right now and looking forward to doing it sometime in the future. Other people I've heard have benefited greatly from acupuncture. I think it's important to choose a treatment that suits you and a therapist that you feel comfortable with. Just by chance, before I had this experience, I'd done a lot of dental work. This meant I'd been advised to be scrupulous, keeping my mouth clean. So, by chance, I'd used small brushes to clean between my teeth, and I never did have the experience of having a bad taste in my mouth, like a lot of people receiving chemotherapy. I did have ulcers on the tongue one time and ulcers in the mouth. My doctor advised chamomile tea as a mouthwash, and I found it extremely soothing. But I've been very surprised by my yoga practice. I've been teaching yoga since 1977, and since I arrived at the age of 50, I've been, for my personal practice, doing Ashtanga yoga. For some reason, as I got older, I needed the more dynamic form, the flow and the ujjayi breath. I never expected to be able to do 90 minutes of Ashtanga yoga while I was doing chemotherapy. Anyway, before my illness, sometimes I would come to the mat to practice yoga, feeling really tired, and I would think, the last thing I can do now is my practice. And by magic, the practice would just flow. Anyway, in yoga, we stress that one should have no competition either with oneself in the past or with other people. Practice is a personal experience. When I practice yoga, because I've had no reconstructive surgery as yet, I wear a bra with a breast form for both better balance between the two sides of the body. In my everyday life, I wear a wig, mostly for other people not to be constantly reminded that I'm going through some kind of treatment. But I actually really love my shaved head. And so when I do my yoga practice, I do it without the wig, and it gives me a wonderful sense of freedom. So I'm going to show you my practice now. I'll be telling you some of the modifications that I've made, both because of the mastectomy and because of the chemotherapy. I usually start with the sound Om. Chant the sound Om in a very relaxed way and feel the sound travel through your body. It's an opportunity to have a sense of your axis and have a feeling of the 2 feet really rooted into the earth, like the roots of a tree, roots going down and also knitting with the earth. After that, I practice the sun posture. I'm going to be showing you 5 different variations, starting with the one that I used almost immediately after my operation, the simplest version, and finishing with the version that I do today. I found that by just locking the thumbs a little bit gives me just a little bit enough support to be able to lift my left arm higher. I'm going to start with 3 breaths to give myself the rhythm. I would do a few breaths here just to relax the back of my pelvis and allow my hips to sink into the floor. I'd got a little bit stiff from lying in bed and resting around the house. And of course I would do that on both sides. I'm not going to do that now. I'll move into the next version. Quite soon on, I found that I could take some weight on my arms. My surgeon had suggested to me that I try it gradually. Of course, you will always follow your doctor's orders. When I first started these forward bends that follow, I couldn't put my hand underneath my foot. So you can either put your hands less underneath or bend the knees slightly, but make sure that you keep the sit bones high to the ceiling. I found the breathing really important. Make sure that you take advantage of the fact that when you breathe in, the rib cage automatically lifts away from the pelvis. So you have a natural lengthening of the spine. You can take advantage of that. Triangle pose I found I could do very soon on in my practice. When you're using your arms, try to feel them as like giant wings. So there's a spread of energy from the shoulder blade through the arms, through the palm of the hands, out of the fingertips. So you emphasize the support from the shoulder blades. It doesn't matter how far you go down. In the beginning, you may go down a little less than you did previously. It's not important. Always come up smoothly. Sometimes you might feel a little bit dizzy. And you can rest your arms in between, give them a little break. Remember, the underneath arm lengthens down and the top arm lengthens up, so the heart center is always open. The triangle with the twist might be a little bit challenging in the beginning, but I think it's important for the releasing of the fascia around the rib cage. So you can just do it in a lighter way. Make sure you set up your preparation well. Turn the pelvis as much as possible. Turn the rib cage, without straining, of course, as much as possible. Keep the lengthening going. Open the back shoulder and just go down a little bit. Remember to really imprint the back foot. Press the feet well into the floor. Your arm might not lift, but you can just smoothly, in a graceful way, change it. Om. For the deep forward bends on the third one, I was quite surprised when very early on in my practice, my arms just floated up. You have a very wide base here. It's important to remember the axis, like a line of light going from the top of the head, through the spine, deep down into the earth. So you have this sense of your axis, the balance on each side of the body. When you open the arms to the side, you actually have a sense of the shape of the cross. And this gives you a feeling of stability. If you're feeling a little bit slightly weak or a little bit dizzy, you can visualize the cross as you're doing the movement. Remember, even in these forward bends, your heart center is open. "85% of the bending comes from the hip joint, so you're softening and releasing in the hip joint. The shoulders are relaxed and the shoulder blades are down away from the ears. You might feel that you have a little bit more tension in the shoulders and the upper back after the operation. When you want to come up, really root the feet into the floor. Of course, you come up with an in-breath. Make sure that you come up slowly and smoothly and use your gaze. So as you come up here, you look straight ahead, and that will prevent you from maybe feeling a little bit dizzy. These positions are great, and you can do them from very early on. Make sure you relax around the shoulder blades and bring the shoulder blades together as much as possible. As you're bending, focus on the tip of the nose or a little bit beyond it. Start the in-breath a little bit before the motion of coming up, so it's as if it initiates, the breath initiates the movement. And then the arms lowering to the sides, emphasize that sense of axis again. And don't be afraid of this one. This is the one that I suddenly flowed into. The more you move forward towards the head and surrender the head to gravity, the more the arms will effortlessly float up.
Maybe in the beginning you might not want to do all of these, and you can just do one or two of them, but very soon you'll find yourself doing the whole set. Think of the in-breath as a phase where you draw in energy from Mother Earth. And think of the out-breath as being a phase where you let go of whatever you don't need right now. Whether it's tension, whether it's a feeling. All of the asanas happen without any strain. I like to do these stretches. The more that you open up the pelvis, the more the upper back relaxes. Also, I like the myth behind these stretches, the myth of the Hanuman. Keep the breathing going even on the transitions between one movement and another movement. So Hanuman had made a tremendous leap from one country to another country to rescue the beautiful Sita, the wife of his friend Ram. To cut a long story short, after the rescue of Sita, Ram wanted to give Hanuman a gift to say thank you. Ram was very disappointed when Hanuman did not want to accept the gift. And Hanuman literally opened up his heart to show Ram that his friend Ram and his wife Sita were written in the fibers of his heart, and therefore he had no need for any thank you. Some days you may find that it's difficult to balance. You may find that it's really quite challenging, but I think it's really important to go through the process. So from the beginning, I would
do the tree pose. I'm doing other balances now, but I think the tree pose is a nice one to start with. So think about the fact that the soles of the feet are listening to Mother Earth. They're really in touch with Mother Earth. The legs are like Greek columns. It's as though you don't have an ankle, you don't have a knee, you just have a column of energy. The mind should be very relaxed, and the gaze is on one point just in front of you. The gaze is relaxed, but it's focused only on one point. When you bend the knee up, keep the hip joint really, really relaxed, and use the sole of the foot like a hand against the floor. Probably going to be really wobbly today as well. Open the right shoulder and send your hand past your hip at the back there. Eventually you might like to hang on to that foot there, but for the time being, just as far as you can take it. I don't know about you, but this was one of the movements the doctor showed me after the operation. You can always use the other hand to encourage the hand a little bit further. As I said, very, very relaxed in the hip joint here as you grab the foot, so you can really just hang the leg down. Always a sense of axis, like a line of light traveling from above the head all the way down through the foot, down into the earth. I felt that the warrior poses and the fierce pose were important, simply because one needs to take a warrior stance in these circumstances. Once again, I used the locking of the thumbs to be able to guide my arms high in the fierce pose. In the first warrior, I would give my arms a break, and I would practice on getting my hips aligned rather. So I put my hands on my hips, and for the 5 breaths, I would work on getting my hips square to the front. really lengthen the arms away from one another. So it's as though someone's pulling the back arm and someone else is pulling the front arm. And again, if you can't lift the arm very high, just make a graceful movement with it. From there, I would go on to the sitting postures. The breaths are part of the heart center, and the whole practice moves to opening the heart, even with the forward bends, as we were saying before. So this posture is particularly important because you really need to think about the collarbone being twice as wide as you see, and the shoulder blades gliding together. You're not actually lifting yourself off the floor at this point in time, but you can still use both arms very positively against the floor. So think about the palm of the hand, really embracing the floor, the length of the fingertips, really embracing the floor, and this part of your arm turns outward. Even in these forward bends, your heart is opening like a light towards your feet. That's why your gaze is on your feet. Keep the shoulders away from the ears, keep them soft. Again, in the beginning, I found it difficult to put my hands in this position. You can always put your hands a little higher. Gradually, the body will open. Always utilizing that in-breath. Lengthening the ribs away from the hips, so you're always gaining a little bit more length. The heart center is always traveling a little bit more forward. At the end of performing a posture, always feel as though you present yourself. You have this sense of your axis. It's as though you're presenting yourself to the divine. Usually we do a vinyasa between these asanas. Because I couldn't take the weight in my arm, I would sometimes do 3 breaths in this position. Relaxing in the hip joints and bringing the knees slowly towards me. For the following posture, I couldn't, of course, lift myself up, but I would put my arms back and relax my head back without lifting the pelvis for the time being, still using the palm of the hand into the floor. Lately, I've begun to lift myself up, bending the knees, opening the feet, and just coming up for a few breaths. And another thing I would do between the asanas is I would practice 3 breaths and a positive thought. So choosing part of Louise Hay's positive thought for breast cancer, I would think the first 3 words internally, of course, I am important. And smoothly, with the breath, come into the next posture, which is very similar to the tree that we did earlier. Got a choice of either pulling the foot up towards you or hanging on to this foot. Remember, for these forward bends, you're bending between the legs, not over the straight leg. The gaze still on your toes. And the second part of the positive thought, I count. And turning the knee in, make sure you keep the knee directly in front of the hip joint. You might want to encourage the calf a little bit out here, so you release the fascia in that leg. And make sure that you're sitting on both hips. So you can hold on to this foot with both arms, or you can place one hand here, just to encourage that hip down. Or you can place one hand on the floor next to you to encourage your weight towards the bent knee. Keep the joints very relaxed as you make the change. There's no sense of strain. I would practice the first movement of the vinyasa again in preparation. Have a sense of lengthening the crown of the head towards the ceiling.
In this next asana, you're turning over the extended leg. The third part of the positive thought, I care and nourish myself with love. You don't have to worry if you managed to link the arms at the back or not in the beginning. You can always use a little scarf if you want to hang on to. I allow others to be free. The heart center is still traveling forward along the floor. If you know the vinyasa sequence, you can visualize it as you do the balance. The twists are really important. Make sure you lengthen as you twist. The lengthening is really important.
later on you can change the arms as the body starts to open up. We are all free and safe. I found just after the operation that my abdominal muscles were quite weak, so I had to modify the boat pose. So you can modify it by bending the knees. And perhaps in the beginning you won't want to lift yourself off the floor, but you can place your hands against the floor. Another modification would be this. I'm now able to lift myself off the floor, which is nice. I still can't do any of the arm balances, but it's always very nice to go, or to attempt to go, into the turtle. So I found this quite accessible, this first preparation quite accessible right from the beginning. So if you really feel as though someone is pushing you forward from the tail, and really relax in the hip joints and use the hands a little bit to pull, always without strain, of course. The breath helps the lengthening of the ribs away from the hips. And it took me a while to be able to open the arms to the side. So you might want to leave this second part until you're more comfortable. And you can just do a few breaths here if you're able to. And then gradually, keeping the breath going, you can turn the arms. I find this such a transforming posture that I would always just go as far as it would allow me to go. The journey of going into it is very important.
probably enough for today.
for that. You can also treat these in-between breaths like a kind of absorbing of the asana, the posture that's come before, absorbing the results of it. The turtle is always very profound and takes you into an altered state. Long neck, open collarbone, chin in, gentle gaze on the tip of the nose. I would also use a mantra here for the 3 breaths. Om Namah Shivaya. I honor the divine that is within me. Actually now, moving on, I'm actually doing a modified version of the vinyasa, and I'm doing it, approaching it cautiously, not to strain my arm. I'm doing it after each 3 asanas. And it feels nice to get back to it. Make sure you really lengthen the arms along the floor, reach the arms towards the feet, so your collarbone opens again. Gaze on the tip of the nose and feel the arms like they have roots, they're pressing down into the earth. Probably won't be able to do the full wheel, but we can put our arms into position and
work with relaxing the shoulders and feeling the palms of the hands really rooted into the floor, the fingertips rooted into the floor, and finding the connection with the arms and the shoulder blades. It's a good preparation anyway for the future. Wherever you might feel a pulling, use the out-breath to just relax there. I did find that I was afraid to do the shoulder stand in the beginning. I'm not quite certain what that was to do with, but I trusted my instincts. So only approach it when you're ready, and the support becomes really important, to be very aware of the support. The support is along the back of the top rim of the shoulders here, and this part of the arm. Move the arms together so that you have the elbows as close as possible. And of course, you always come up with an in-breath. And in the beginning, maybe stay a little bit less. I'm just going to stay for 5 breaths. Relax the shoulders, extend the arms along the mat. Who's doing this from quite early on. Focus is on the tip of the nose. Think of the sit bones really reaching towards the ceiling. You've got a lot of variations that you can choose from here. Feel the arms really rooted against the floor and keep the thighs rested on your chest as you come down. I was really surprised that I could go into the fish pose almost immediately with my first practices quite soon after the operation. That second variation of the fish, I was not able to do it in the beginning. I didn't feel strong enough. When you do approach it, focus more on the breath and where your gaze is, which is internally in the wisdom center. The relaxation is very important. Always make sure that you give yourself enough time for this. There's the phase where the body and the psyche absorb the effects of the practice. It's called the corpse pose. It is an asana. So in effect, you're allowing whatever you no longer need to die. So whether it's a particular tension that you might have been holding on to physically, whether it's an emotion, a thought, you just let go, empty the cup. So once you've allowed yourself to relax and be empty, then because the cup is emptied, you can be filled with new energy, light. So this will probably take you a minimum of 10 minutes. So you need to allow that time. I'm going to share with you something extra that I did, which was suggested by my sound master, Joe Tornabene, who also was sending me healing from a distance during this period. Suggested that I visualize a green color flowing through my body, and generally I see it as a kind of emerald light. And he suggested that I tone or sound what I feel from that light. So I'm going to do that now.